I'd like to tell you the story of how I met my wife, Meryl Lipton. I was on the board of a family institute in Minneapolis. One day, after a particularly long board meeting, I was leaving with the head psychiatrist when a young woman approached us. A family was sitting behind her. "Doctor," she said, "you've kept my patient waiting for an hour and a half, so this is what we're going to do. You're going to see him right now and give him the best consultation you've ever done." Her passion and conviction were so intriguing, I did the only thing I could think of. I married her. What can I say about Meryl?
If you're in the wrong about something, then she'll let you know. But it won't be like, she'll let you know in a nice way.
You know, she's got a twinkle in her eye all the time. She's so compassionate and just doesn't take herself too seriously.
She started out as a special ed teacher, and she still is a special ed teacher, somebody that thinks about, cares about, loves kids who have problems, and that's her core.
She was born on the Lower East Side of Manhattan and worked in a home for troubled teens. Then, after graduation, and decades before it became popular, she started a preschool in California, mixing typical and atypical kids.
You know, I had been trained as a teacher, as a behaviorist, got a master's in special ed of the emotionally disturbed. And as I sat in the school that I started, I realized that there was something in the body that made behavior. It wasn't just the environment. Years ago, when somebody couldn't read, people thought they were stupid or lazy. Well, that's not what it's about. You know, it's about not being able to process letters and sounds to bring you words and then meaning.
When I met her, she was getting her Ph.D. in educational psychology. But that wasn't enough for Meryl. Sparked by her interest in the brain and behavior, she went on to medical school and got an M.D. specializing in pediatric neurology. And when I took a job in Chicago, we moved to Evanston.
I was 41, and we had Max, and I really enjoyed being at home.
But the phone started ringing as soon as she arrived. One of the people who called was Sam Godoff, head of pediatrics at Rush.
So he says, "Well, you know, Max is going to get older, and you're going to really want to work, and I'm going to want you to work here."
Needless to say, Meryl was terrific at what she did, although no one quite understood what it was.
She just sits there and she connects. You'll see her connect with this child, and the child will connect with her. And you'll see through this sort of a transfusion almost of Meryl and the child connecting with each other. Some good stuff comes from her to the child. The child will learn.
Meryl is an outstanding listener. I mean, she listens and she absorbs, and as she absorbs, she formulates her point of view, or she enhances her point of view if she already has one. That's what's great about her.
Meryl and her colleagues met weekly to share their experiences. When a few parents became interested, the Rush NeuroBehavioral Center was born.
Well, the beginning was a group of us, 4 or 5 of us, sitting around Meryl's kitchen table in Evanston and discussing the fact that it would be wonderful to be able to, for Meryl to be able to replicate her work with more patients than she could currently see.
She knew that there were kids that had neurologically based difficulties in the skills that they needed to make relationships work. And she wanted to have a place where they could be brought in and evaluated and things done to make them better.
The work of the center goes on every day in one-on-one sessions with kids, consultations with parents, and in schools where the RNBC staff works to create an understanding atmosphere for atypical kids. Meryl was particularly good at this.
I can remember being in the meeting and everybody going around telling their stories about Joe's strengths and weaknesses and what they could do or what they thought they should be doing and what would work. And after everybody was done speaking, Meryl takes the floor and calmly, authoritatively, but not critical, not judgmental, just said, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what I expect.
I'm sure she's had to deliver some very difficult diagnoses, but her hope and her ability to draw a line from a difficult problem to its solution and engage parents and children and teachers in the effort that it will take to get to the end of that line are remarkable.
This is not black and white. It's not like something's wrong and then it's just going to get better. We're into grays here. Many, many forms of gray. And what we do know is that your kid has a lot of strengths and some constraints. And what we want to do is create environments where those strengths are used more and the constraints are lessened. 7 years ago, I was writing a presentation and I started doodling like some relationships between things that I was observing, and I put this thing together and it was called the Social Emotional Learning Framework.
That framework has become the basis of a multi-million-dollar federal grant to RNBC. They're developing a test that will enable staff in schools across the country who are concerned about a child to screen for social learning problems.
You have to realize in the span of 15 years, it went from one woman's idea about what could be done to this place that I think is one of the best places in the whole country for children who have these neurologically based difficulties to come to. What a legacy to leave.